Today, we celebrate Martin Luther King for all of his works and because he had a dream that he got out of his head, shared it with the world, and took action. His self confidence helped change the nation. This week, we are talking about self confidence. And today, we will discuss what it does on today's Antidote.
Stay tuned for today's Antidote, brought to you by the Renegade Success Network. Today's Antidote features a healthy dose of thought-provoking insights and information for business owners, entrepreneurs, leaders, and nonprofit professionals. Each day since March of 2020, this program has offered that one thing to help you continue on your own unique pathway to success. And now, Renegades, we bring you Bob Graham and Tom Brush.
Hey, Tom, that introduction was a lot of fun, wasn't it?
It was fun. Always interesting. And great to be able to have the chance to celebrate Martin Luther King on this day and other days. So
yes, absolutely. Big day. I know there are activities planned and remembrances planned all around the country and even around the world. And I think it's really great. It's really, we don't do enough of that. You and I are always talking about celebrating, and remembering is another way of celebrating. And I don't think we do enough of that as a nation. So when we come together on these days, and when schools are closed, and when businesses are closed, and banks are closed, it's an important day. It reminds us of where we've been and where we can go. And certainly Martin Luther King Jr. gives us that opportunity to really look at where we've been and where we can go.
No doubt. There's always opportunity for change, or just to look at things a little bit differently. And, we're blessed that we have had people who are willing to share their thoughts, ideas, and dreams to help people change, help things change.
Martin Luther King Jr., a renegade, right?
Most definitely.
Yeah. Like if you started the list of renegades, he would have to be right near the top.
He would definitely be in the top, and I think, as we've talked about before, that we all have the opportunity to be a renegade because we're all traveling our own unique pathway to success. It's just whether we determine to see it that way or to feel like we are just traveling same old path that millions before us have traveled and not really sure what's different about it. So
embracing that renegading you is the difference maker, right?
I think, yes. And I also think self-confidence. I think our topic this week of self-confidence is ways that renegades really start to identify that I can do this, that this is something that is going to make a difference in who I am. And I don't have to follow the path that everyone else is choosing. I can choose to create my own, and it'll take me to wherever I want to go.
But before we get there, Tom, we have to go to celebrations.
We definitely have to discuss our celebrations. There is no doubt about that. What are you celebrating today, Bob?
I'm celebrating something I don't pay attention to very often, and I don't do very often, which is just let things be the way they are and just be along for the ride instead of trying to change things or affect them or make them the way I want them to be. I had a couple instances over the weekend where things just went a certain way, and I knew I wanted to change them, but I decided not to. I decided that I would just see what happened. And what was incredibly powerful to me was how freeing that was to actually be in that moment and recognize things I wouldn't have recognized because I'm constantly trying to fix things.
Well, I think that's a choice we have, right? To determine whether we are just going to go with what happens or choose to create a different pathway. And I think that is all part of figuring out, this whole renegade way is one is to identify that we have those choices. Two is then to choose which ones we are going to follow. I like it.
Nice. What about you?
I am celebrating, I think that there's so many challenges right now, and people talk about it all the time. And yet there can still be significant success. So Liz and I attended the lacrosse convention. USA Lacrosse held a convention for mostly high school officials and coaches and players. And I think because it was in Baltimore City, there was lots of concerns about the numbers, the COVID numbers, and traveling and canceled flights and all the things that are going on. And then the numbers were way down. Some of the sessions were held remotely, and there was still great value. And I think that, I walked away from that saying, you know what, while it was different than it had been in years past, I still found great value in it. And, for all of the questions and concerns that, wow, there's not a presenter in the room, it's not going to be the same. I sort of would disagree that it is not the same, and it was still worthwhile of doing. So I just, the innovation that people are able to take and figure out how to take situations that aren't exactly as they planned and figure out how to move forward with them.
Nice.
Yes. What are our renegades celebrating today, Bob?
Tom, it strikes me that the only thing that we could possibly celebrate today is those renegades who put it all on the line. If you look at Martin Luther King Jr.'s pathway, there were many death threats. There were many warning signs. There were many things that put him at risk. And he still went about what he believed he needed to do to help our civilization, our society. And, we most of us do that in our own way, not to that extreme level, but we put ourselves in harm's way. We take risks that some would say, why would you do that? And I think we need to celebrate that today because it's an important part of carving that new pathway. If it were easy, everyone would do it, right?
Sure. Certainly. I like that. And other renegades out there, if you may notice, we are creating our own renegade calendar of days that we are celebrating. So if you have something that you would like to celebrate, it's easy to do. You can, within the Ring of Renegades group, go in there. There's a link to fill out a form and suggest your own day, the day that you want to celebrate. And if you have a specific day, you can put that. If you have just, it wants to be in this month, you can do that. And then we will add it to our calendar. And we're encouraging people not to put in birthdays. They are important. And yet at the same time, we want this to be, and you to think about how can everyone as a renegade celebrate this? And so please feel free to send in your suggestions and ideas because that will help us grow a calendar for renegades and what we will celebrate. And then we will acknowledge you on the show each day when we provide that celebration.
Nice.
Yes. And one other thing, we were talking about, people who put risks out. And I think in Martin Luther King, and as I mentioned in the opening, he had a dream. He could have let that dream stay in his head. And where would we be today? How differently would things look? Others who put, as you said, took a risk that could have endangered themselves and made a difference because they got it out of their head and they were like, you know what? I have the self-confidence to put this out there. And I would imagine that each and every one of us have dreams that we think about, and yet we never put them out there. So if you're sitting there thinking, yeah, I've been thinking about this dream, or it's the start of the year and you had this resolution that you were going to do, but you haven't really taken any action towards it, on this Thursday at 4 p.m. Eastern time, we will run our final workshop on From I Wish to Success, the Renegade Way. And this will be a chance for you to get those ideas, those dreams and wishes out of your head, create an action plan to take action so that you can move forward and accomplish and have the success that you want. So there's more information about that. Bob's probably working to put that in the note.
I am working on it as we speak.
You can also find more information about it by going to the renegadesuccessnetwork.com website. Click on programs and you will see the information for the workshop. There's also a little header in there that's a link to a button that'll take you to more information about that page. So the other place you can find information is on LinkedIn. On our LinkedIn page, there's an event page, as well as, I believe, on our Ring of Renegades Facebook group. So with that, I think it's time for us to dive into our topic of self-confidence, what it does. Do you want to kick us off, Bob?
I will. And this is somewhat interesting to talk about because I think at times I have great self-confidence and at times I have very little self-confidence. So I'm going to put this out there at the beginning. And I don't think I'm unusual in that regard. But I think what I find is when I'm confident in myself, I'm more comfortable in situations where I might otherwise be uncomfortable. So in business, I speak on stages a lot. And the first 10, 20 times I did it, I was really not confident. I was worried about what I was going to do. I worried about the reaction of people. I worried that I was going to totally bomb. Now, when I get on stages, and the stages have gotten bigger and bigger, and doing over Zoom has changed a lot, I have a confidence based on prior experience that I in my head go, there's nothing they're going to throw at me that I can't figure out. And I think that's a big part of self-confidence, is knowing that you've done the repetitions so that the next time it kind of becomes muscle memory, like the quarterback throwing the ball. There's a certain amount, if you watch Tom Brady, it's just muscle memory, or Josh Allen or any of those guys. Yeah, I know the Buffalo Bills won. We should celebrate that. But even in business, there are things, if you do something enough, if you make enough sales calls, if you lead team meetings enough, you start to build a confidence, because it's like you've been through it and you know that you will figure out how to overcome whatever challenge comes up. And I think when I lack self-confidence, it's often because it's a challenge I've never confronted before. And so I don't have the pathway clear about how to move forward. What are your thoughts?
Well, I would agree with that. And I also think that it also is, you don't have it sometimes when you haven't achieved the results that you desired for something. If your first couple, and, I think the more you do things, the more you get comfortable with it, and you tend to get closer and closer to the results you desire. I would imagine that as some of your first speaking engagements did not go as planned. And
no, they were all perfect. Come on, Tom. You know me. Everything I do is perfect.
I'm sorry. Some of the presentations on
that
stage
was a
that
joke.
I did,
that was a
or
joke.
with organizations,
some people don't write in how pompous I am.
didn't go as planned, and sometimes when those things happened, or when someone asked a question that I wasn't completely prepared for, it didn't answer the way that I had hoped I had answered or could have answered, that sometimes the next time you open up for questions, you have a little less confidence, because your last experience or a past experience did not turn out the way you thought it would. And I think there's always, when those things happen, the next time you do it, there's always the potential that somebody's going to ask a question that is going to stump you, or someone is going to do something that you're not prepared for. It was interesting. We had, one of the things they did this weekend was there was a big, yesterday at this convention, almost all of the sessions were webinars, were Zoom calls. And I had never been in a Zoom call where we got bombed. And they got bombed in a really, nasty way. The person came in and just said so inappropriate things. And they, and they couldn't figure it out, because I don't think they had ever had that happen in one of those situations. And so it took them a while to try to work through it. And so, and then they had to send out new links. And I have a feeling that every link they sent out, they were worried, well, what happens if somebody else gets a hold of this and we get bombed again? And so I think that the only way you sometimes work through those things is continuing to do it, so that you rebuild up the confidence that I think we figured out, here's a password that everybody has to have, and hopefully people aren't sharing it, or that their email wasn't hacked. And that gives you a greater opportunity. And so I think, when we talk about self-confidence and what it does, I think what it does is it allows you to be more and more comfortable with the situations that you have previously been in and have gone well, or that you've been able to manage when they didn't go as well, and feel like, so I would imagine the organizers now are feeling more comfortable about what can they do the next time to ensure that this doesn't happen again. Okay, maybe now, rather than just sending out a link, everyone has to have a password and log in. And so, again, as long as some other conditions that are sort of out of their control don't happen, the likelihood of being Zoom bombed again is less likely to occur. And so they're you become more and more comfortable, you more and more confident, easier to then do whatever the next thing that's coming up.
And to confront challenge, right? If you're
Sure.
self-confident, then you become more comfortable with situations, which means you have more capacity to deal with new, uncharted waters, right? So you're not worrying about, to use your example, you're not worried about the meeting being Zoom bombed as much as you were before, which means now you can worry about other challenges. Is this, is the content flowing correctly? Are people understanding? Are we hitting our time constraints? Because what I think happens to us naturally is we start to, a lack of self-confidence is when we just see all the potential problems and they become overwhelming. Well, what if this happens? 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 And while we go through that list in our head, we talk ourselves out of taking an action. This morning before the program, you and I were talking about something I'm thinking of doing. And you brought up a point that you've brought up before. And part of what I'm trying not to do is talk myself out of something, because I know that no matter what I do in this situation, it will be a good thing for me just to do it. Right, wrong, good or bad, doesn't matter. It will be a stretch for me in a new direction, and I need to stretch that way. So I can talk myself out of it, and it has to do with a housing option, if you're curious. Or I can say, you know what, I'm just going to come what may, and it's not like a life-ending decision. That's something I had to realize in the last couple of years, finally, is that we make decisions and think we're stuck with them for the rest of our life. We're only stuck with them for as long as we choose to be stuck with them. They can go our whole life, or you can just, you bought a car, you have it for 3 months, you really hate it. You take it back to a dealer, you lose some money, yes, but you get rid of the car and you get a car you want. That's not the end of the world. And people do that sometimes. But most of the time we think about, well, if I buy this car, I'm married to this car for the rest of my life. It'll never, what if it's the wrong choice? And we get paralyzed. We lack our confidence. And we also, I think, self-confidence erodes when we start to think of all the things we were confident in that didn't work out the way we expected. And then you start to go, well, I screwed this up last time, and I screwed this up, and I screwed this up. Odds are really good. This next thing I'm going to do, I'm going to screw up. And that's really the paralyzing part of a lack of self-confidence. I also think when we are more self-confident, it attracts other people to support what we're trying to do. And I've seen that in the last month or two in my own life. I've had people be really generous with their time, with their thoughts, with all kinds of things that wasn't available to me before because I wasn't confident.
Sure. I mean, I think it's interesting. I was thinking, my mind was going all over the place while you were talking, actually. And one of the thoughts I had, I'm going to hold on to because I think it's a good topic for Thursday.
Okay.
So those of you who are curious, you're going to have to come back Thursday morning for the show. And the other thought I had is that when I started to think about, well, what our topic is what it does. What does self-confidence really do? And I think that one of the things it does is it helps us take more risk, go out and do things because we have had some success, or we have overcome something that may not have gone as planned to be able to move forward with it. If you have never held a team meeting for your organization or had to stand up and present to the entire organization about what your team does, there's a good chance that you're not going to be as self-confident when you go up there, that you're going to be nervous about how this is going to happen. If you have done a ton of other presentations to other groups, to your team, the information backwards and forwards, you're more confident that you're going to be able to stand up there and share the information, even though it's in front of a larger group of people. And so I think a lot of times what it does is it allows you to go out and do it and be like, okay, I've had success in the past, or I've been able to overcome a challenge and it hasn't completely derailed me. So maybe I'm more comfortable now in taking the next risk, addressing the next challenge that comes up, the next opportunity that, while may seem scary, I understand that I've done it before.
I like
So,
it.
Bob, as we roll towards the close of this Martin Luther King Day edition, what's your one thing?
I think when we talk about self-confidence and what it does, I think it's to look at all the things it does for us internally, but also what it does for us externally. I think we often lose sight of its powerful effect. And we'll talk more about that over the course of the week. But as I look at self-confidence, I start to realize where it manifests opportunities that wouldn't otherwise be there.
I like that. I think mine is similar in that I think what it does is that it allows us to share those things that we might not have otherwise shared. I think if Martin Luther King, while he definitely found challenges in sharing his message and there was a lot of risk, he also found support and found others out there who were willing to be supportive of what he was trying to do, which I think allowed him to have self-confidence that this was the message that was real for him and that he needed to get it out, and that many were looking for that support, and so that he was willing to take the next risk, whatever that might be, so that others would be able to hear and what was real for them would be impacted, so that they could figure out how to take the next step and maybe join in and become a part of it. I would imagine that while you look at images of him giving presentations, he looks very in control and confident. Yet I would imagine if you were standing on the Capitol steps looking back over the reflecting pool and there are thousands and thousands of people and you're walking up to the mic, I would imagine there's a little bit of doubt that might roll through your head of like, holy cow, what am I doing? And I think for him, I would imagine that he looked back on all of his past experiences and had the confidence that this was the message that he needed to get out, that allowed him the confidence to step up there and deliver what, as we all know, was an absolutely amazing speech that has been highly regarded for many, many years and will be for many, many years to come.
Indeed.
So I think it allows us to take more risk. That's my
All right. I like it.
All right, everyone. If you have one thing you'd like to share or comments or thoughts about our episode today, please feel free to put them in the comments if you're watching the broadcast on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, YouTube, and
LinkedIn Live. Sorry, I fell asleep there for a second.
I was worried about that. And if you're listening to the podcast, we would welcome you to share it with others. You can also rate it because that helps other people have a
5
chance.
stars, please.
Yes, Bob is looking for those 5 stars. As well, and then if you have thoughts or ideas you want to share, or you'd like to share your one thing, your antidote today, please join us in the Ring of Renegades Facebook group. You can share that information. We know that it will have an impact not only on the two of us, it will also impact those who are in the group, our 1,100 plus members strong. So we look forward to seeing you inside the Ring of Renegades Facebook group, or we will see you tomorrow morning, 8 a.m. Eastern time for our next edition of today's Antidote. Have a great day, everyone.
Hey, self-confidently embrace the renegading you.
And go out and celebrate Martin Luther King.
There you go.
Thanks for listening to today's Antidote, powered by the Renegade Success Network. The Renegade Success Network helps you confidently create your own unique pathway to success. To learn more about the Renegade Success Network and how you can take your next step, follow us on Twitter, connect on LinkedIn, or join the Ring of Renegades Facebook group. For full details on how you can join our community, go to renegadesuccessnetwork.com. Embrace the renegade in you.